this switch, then this switch. That activates it. Then you push this button, which will give you 5 minutes to get out of there. Now, whatever you do, don't push this button, because that will set off the bomb immediately and we'll all be dead. Now, repeat back what I just said.
I am Groot.
Uh-huh.
I am Groot.
That's right.
I am Groot.
No! No, that's the button that will kill everyone. Try again.
I am Groot.
Mm-hmm.
I am Groot.
Uh-huh.
I am Groot.
No, that's exactly what you just said. How is that even possible? Which button is the button you're supposed to push? Point to it. No!
Hey, you're making him nervous!
Shut up and give me some tape. Does anybody have any tape out there? I want to put some tape over the death button.
I don't have any tape. Let me check. Yo, Yondu! Do you have any tape? Gamora! Do you have any tape? Tape! Oh, never mind. Drax! Do you have any tape? Yeah, Scott's tape would work. Then why did you ask me if Scott's tape would work if you don't have any? Nobody has any tape.
Not a single person has tape.
Nope.
Did you ask Nebula?
Yes.
Are you sure?
I Yondu and she was sitting right next to him.
I knew you were lying.
You have priceless batteries and an atomic bomb in your bag. If anybody's gonna have tape, it's you.
That's exactly my point. I have to do everything.
You are wasting a lot of time here.
We're all gonna die.
Welcome to Superhero Cinephiles Podcast. I am half of your host, Barry Constantine.
And as always, I am the other half, Derrick Ferguson.
How you doing today, Derrick?
Oh, quite well. Thank you very much for asking. And how are you?
I'm doing all right. We're starting to it's getting really hot out in this area. And because it's June, we're about to enter into the rainy season. So that's not going to be fun.
No, okay. Yeah, it's been pretty warm here too. The last couple of days, it's been up in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So they say that it's been like a few degrees warmer than normal for this time, for this time of year. But, I'm not complaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the lockdowns stop right during the time when you do not want to leave the house.
Oh, forget about it. Yeah. I mean, yeah, nobody, as a matter of fact, my wife and I, we had to drive to Target to pick up a package,
mm-hmm.
She'd ordered. And what it is that, they bring it right to your car. So you don't have to get out of your car, and go inside the store and risk exposure to, but both of us were amazed at how many people were walking in and out of Target, not wearing any masks, no gloves, no nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like everybody. Yeah, I mean, well, of course, we had the protests going on here for 2 weeks,
mm-hmm.
and that was like, forget about it. All social distancing has gone out the window now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been seeing that too. And then I saw, Fauci was on yesterday or something talking about how there might be some other stuff coming up. And it's just like, oh, yeah, I almost forgot about that guy.
Yeah, well, you know why? He's been in his basement.
Yeah.
Fauci saying, listen, y'all don't want to listen to me. Hey, you know what? That's cool.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm going to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I believe that that's what he's been doing. He's been staying in his house, and he say, "Hey, listen, I'm, and know what? I don't blame him." Patricia and I, we do the same thing. We've been in the house today. We had to go get the package, but that's like the first time we've been outside the house in about 4 or 5 days.
Yeah. I still am. I go out for work, and then last Sunday I actually went out to the gym for the first time in months. And my body still hurts, actually.
Yeah.
I'm just not used to it. So I was planning to go today after we were done here, but now I think I might hold off and only do it once a week for now until I get used to it again.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it was definitely not the best idea. The day after, I could not move at all.
Mm.
At the
Totally.
peak, I was going like 3 times a week, and then that kind of, when I got busy, that fell down to 2. But then, when this stuff started, like I stopped going completely. So I haven't been in like 2-3 months or so.
Oh well, yeah.
So that's why, like, I haven't been in like 2 or 3 months. So it was just
Yeah, man. Yeah,
those muscles
yeah,
have not been used at all.
exactly. And that's the thing about it. Because I know guys who like work out and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and I asked them because they still go to the gym, and I said, well, why you keep working out that hard? And they said, well, you got to maintain, because if you just stop, they said, forget about it. It's worse than It's like your body just like goes to shit real fast.
Definitely, yeah.
And then then you got to work twice as hard to get yourself back to that whatever level of development that you were at. So.
Right. And I don't do it for like development or anything. I just do it more just to stay healthy. So I'm not too worried about any of that stuff. But yeah, it like weights that were no problem for me 3 months ago are suddenly like I can't lift them at all.
Yeah.
It's amazing how fast it goes to shit.
Oh, it goes, because when I was younger, like back when I was in my 30s, I was going to the gym,
Mhm.
like 2, 3 times a week, and then I just stopped going. And man, after I stopped going for like about 3-4 months,
Mhm.
Like you said, I went back. I almost had a heart attack.
Yeah. But I'm getting back into it now, and the gym wasn't crowded at all. There was like nobody in there, so that was good too, and for a Sunday no less. But yeah, it was good, and they actually got some new equipment there too. So that was good to see as well.
Well, I'm proud of you. Keep it up. Don't turn into a fat blob like your partner here.
All right. Let's see. So today, well, we had a bit of a issue with our last episode because some asshole decided to hack the podcast server.
Yeah, what was up with that?
I have no idea. Just like because every the episodes drop Monday morning, Monday night for me. So like every Monday night. After my girlfriend goes to bed, I sit down with a scotch. I'm reading my comics or whatever, or a book or whatever, and I put on the podcast and see if anything, got screwed up, and I listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening to it, and I'm trying to download it, and I'm like, oh, wait, this is taking a long time to download. And like, is there a problem with my network? What is it? And like nothing's working. I keep downloading, keep saying like download failed, and I go to the website and I don't see it, the player on the website on my phone. So I'm like, okay. So I try to log into our server, and there's this image of there. It's like some anime character, and it says like, you have been hacked by, some character from an anime name or whatever like that. And I'm like, you fucking dickheads. I'm like, what? There's no, and so I email our podcasting service, Podmeo, and they get back to me real quick. They're like, yeah, it's been, apparently it's just been a defacing. Like they haven't gotten into all the backups are still there. All the encrypted data is safe. All of that is fine. I said, okay, good. I'm like, so how long will it take? And they said, well, we should have stuff back up within an hour or so. I'm like, okay. So an hour later, I check back again. Still, it's not working. And I email them back. I'm like, so what's going on? I'm like, yeah, well, we're still working on it. We'll have everything back up soon. And I said, okay, fine. So I go to bed, wake up in the morning, and email them, and I still see it's down. So I email them again, and they say, well, yeah, Amazon's still working on the problem. It's out of our hands. And they said that it'll be up by 7 p.m. Central Time. And this is like, it's like, 5 p.m. Central Time when I emailed them. So afterwards, I get ready, go to work. And while I got a break at work, I take a look at the website again, still not working. So I email them again. I said, so it's been like 2 hours past 7 now. It's still not working. What's going on? And they sent me back an email, and they said, well, yeah, we're still having problems. It's out of our hands. But if you send us all your files, then we can get them back up for you manually. And they didn't include a link or anything to upload them because you can't upload all that data in an email.
Oh, well, no, yeah.
And I'm like, so are you guys going to send me a link for where to update it? Or 12 hours go by, no response. And I emailed them again. And I'm like, so what, like, and they emailed me back and they said, yeah, we're still working on it. I'm like, look, it's been 24 hours now by this point. You guys haven't, you guys said you'd provide me with a means to upload it, but you didn't provide that. And you keep saying it'll be another hour, and you just keep giving me excuses. And I tell them, like, are you going to fix this or what? And then finally they send me the link to upload the files. We're able to get all the files back online. So now the show's back online. Although now I'm thinking I'm going to start looking around for an alternative host if this is how they're going to mess around.
Well, you know what? I mean, this kind of stuff doesn't happen to them often, does it?
Well, I don't know, but just the thing that pissed me off was the lack of responsibility.
Yeah.
Like saying, like, oh, it'll be up in an hour. Oh, it's not our fault, and all this stuff. I'm like, and then not even sending me the link they had to upload the files.
Right. Yeah. That old thing. I get pissed off with that too, because my thing is, okay. My philosophy is that even if it's not your fault, if you're in charge, it's your fault. You take responsibility.
That's why I told him. I said, look, I'm paying you to host my podcast. I'm not paying Amazon Web Services. So don't give me excuses about Amazon Web Services having to deal with it. I'm paying you guys, so you guys are the ones who are responsible.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's my thing. You know what? Because if you call yourself being in charge or the boss, or you're providing a service, even if it's not your fault, it's your fault.
Right. Yeah.
It's just that simple,
And especially when you're telling me that it's all going to be up in an hour, and then 24 hours later, it's still not up.
Right. Instead of just saying, listen, just be honest. Just say, listen, we don't know when it's going to be back up. We're working on it. And as soon as we have the problem resolved, we will contact you.
Oh, at one point, they even tried to blame it on me. Like they said, well, maybe the problem is an issue with your browser's cache. And I'm like, nope, tried it on different browsers, refreshed the cache, tried it on different devices. Still nothing's working. It's not my problem.
Oh, I always hate when they do that. They always say, well, it must be your browser. What browser are you using? The same browser that 90% of the world is using. So what do you
yeah. And that and the upload link, when they finally sent it to me, turns out it didn't work on Google Chrome. So I had to use it on another browser. So yeah, it was just a pain in the ass. But we got it all sorted, and I'm starting to look at alternatives, see if we can find something that'll treat us a little bit nicer after that.
Okay. Well, you are the technical expert.
All right.
So I trust your judgment in this.
Well, yeah. I mean, nothing's really going to change for you. We still do stuff the same no matter what. Just on the back end stuff changes for me. But yeah. Anyway, that's that. That's my little rant out of the way. Today we're talking. I got to pick the movie for this week, and I chose because the world's in chaos right now, and there's all this stuff with just everything's going nuts. Plus, Father's Day is coming up, and I had recently rewatched this movie, and I thought this would be a good movie to cover, especially because you and I both have personal connections to this movie's fatherhood theme. And that's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah, I watched it today for like the first time since it came out in 2017. That's when it came out. And I haven't watched it since then because, I saw this movie. I went to see my father in the hospital. He lived in South Carolina, and he had been in and out of the hospital for a while, and he wasn't doing good. And at that point, we were pretty sure. I went with my sister and my nephew. And, we were pretty sure that, he wasn't going to be going back home. And we went to see him, and when we went to see him, that was the weekend this movie came out. So, of course, to get our minds off everything, we went to see this movie. And, of course, you go see a movie, and the major theme of the movie is about fathers and sons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of, by the time they got to the funeral scene at the end, and they were playing Cat Stevens, father and son, and and I'm sitting there, and I realized that I've got tears coming down my eyes.
Oh yeah.
It was So like I said, I've rewatched other Marvel movies, but I didn't watch this one. Like I said, today was the first time I've seen it since I saw it in the theaters in 2017. So yeah.
I I had just come back from Japan when this came out. Like I had tried to move back to the States, and I had actually just moved out to the West Coast. And I had like one friend out on the West Coast, and she lived in LA. I was in San Diego, and she drove down to come visit me. And so we went to the theater, and I had seen this in Chicago with another friend of mine. So, but she's like, "Do you want to see Guardians of the Galaxy?" Because she's always asking me questions about Marvel movies. Every time she's a Marvel movie, she's got like 24 questions she wants to ask me. So I said, "Yeah, let's go see it." So she drove down and went to see it, and yeah, that was like a good memory of being out on the West Coast. One of the few I have from my brief time there, and then went back, a few months later in the summer, went back to Chicago before eventually planning to move back to Japan. And one day, my mom and my sister were having this lunch party or something for a bunch of their friends. Right? One of those kind of like one of those Sunday afternoon girl things or whatever. And
Yeah.
And so she told me and my dad, "Oh, do you guys want to go out for a movie while we're having this?" And I'm like, "Well, there's not really anything out." And she's like, "No, you guys should go out to a movie." And then I'm like, "Okay, you want us to leave?"
Yeah, exactly. They want you to go.
So I looked at the show times, and it was basically the only movies I was interested in there was Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which by that point I've already seen twice, and then one of the whatever Fast and Furious movie came out at that point. And I'm like, "Oh, do I?" And I'm going back and forth. And even though I hadn't seen the Fast and the Furious, I'm like, you know what? I want to see Guardians 2 again. So my dad and I, we went to see Guardians 2. And, we went out to lunch, went to see the movie. And this was actually a year before my dad died. And this was the last movie we had seen in the theater together.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so that was a really big deal for me. And yeah, like every time I see it, like I start bawling at the end.
I watched it. Like I said, I watched it today, and it got to the end, and I'm sitting there, I'm choking up and everything like that. And I'm saying, "Oh my God," because I'm remembering when I was in the theater and what I was going through then and whatnot. So I was saying, don't get me wrong, I was glad I watched it because it's an incredibly awesome movie.
It is, yeah. I mean, this movie got a lot of pushback when it came out because a lot of people felt it was inferior to the first one, and I think that's the wrong reading of this movie. Like, my thing about this movie is the first one has a better overall story, but this one is better in terms of the characters.
Yeah, this is a very character-driven movie, whereas the first one is like, both of them are just pure space opera.
Right.
Which I love. I love space opera. People are asking me all the time and say, "Oh, Derrick, how come you don't write a space opera?" Well, listen, if I can't write anything better than Star Wars or Guardians of the Galaxy, what's the point? It's pure space opera. But the first one is more like, okay, well, first of all, we have to be introduced to the characters, and it's more plot driven, and it's more what my friend Tom DJ calls punchy, run.
Right.
This one is more wrapped up in the characters and the relationships between the characters, especially the most unexpected relationship in this is the one between Rocket and Yondu.
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all, or how touching that relationship would be.
Oh, you know what? There is real emotional weight, but ridiculous as they look, but Michael Rooker is such a good actor, and who is it?
Bradley Cooper doing the voice,
yeah, Bradley Cooper,
and Sean Gunn doing the motion capture.
Yeah, they are so good that they sell the scene. It's the scene where they're on the spaceship and Yondu is telling Rocket how much alike they are.
Yeah, that was one of those moments where I'm just like, oh wow, yeah, I never even realized that, but.
You're right. That's when your suspension of disbelief goes out the window and you just sell the scene because it's good acting and good writing.
Yeah. And it's so funny watching them interact because you look at the reactions on their face. And also, this is, Bradley Cooper, when he was reading his lines, he was wearing a motion capture helmet so that he could record his facial reactions. And so a lot of that so there is that aspect in there for his performance, but still, like, you gotta admire the the VFX guys for what they were able to do and how realistic they were able to make Rocket look in those scenes. But when they're in the Ravager prison there, and they're talking, and Rocket asks Yondu, he's like, well, why didn't you give Quill the ego anyway? And and Yondu says, oh, well, he was small, he was good, could fit into places we couldn't, he was good for thieving. And Rocket just gives him this look like, you're full of shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
And then there's a similar moment when Yondu says something to Rocket about Rocket being a professional smartass all the time, and Rocket's got, and like Rocket saying like, oh, I don't care about saving their lives, I just want to hold this over Quill's head. And Yondu's like, yeah, right, you're full of shit. Like both of them, in both those moments, they have these reactions that's how you know that they understand each other so well, because they can both smell each other's bullshit.
Well, that's what Yondu tells him. Says, basically he's telling him, you know what, you can't bullshit me because I am you.
Yeah.
I know. And as I said before, it's a very powerful moment, and one that is unexpected, because I did not see their relationship going in that direction.
Yeah,
and them becoming as close as they do in the course of this adventure.
Yeah, this movie plays with your expectations of which characters you're going to focus on. Like, we do get more of Quill and Gamora, but not as much as you might think. And, we do get, Rocket and Groot and all that, but we get these other strange pairings that we weren't expecting, like, like Rocket and Yondu, and also, Drax and Mantis.
Yeah. Well, actually, Quill and Gamora, I found their relationship wasn't interesting. It wasn't interesting to me at all, because, it's that old thing. And he even makes reference to it when he compares their relationship to famous TV romances.
Right. Sam and Diana, Cheers.
Yeah. And I said, well, this is on the level up, that you're yelling at each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
For no discernible reason, then okay, the script needs for them to yell at each other, and that's their idea of or maybe it is. Maybe that is Peter's idea of a relationship. With a woman. Just, they bicker and yell back and forth like they're in a bad TV sitcom.
Well, because that's basically the only template he really has, because his dad was gone when he was growing up. And so, TV is the only real template he has for relationships. And then he gets sent out to space when he's, like 10, 12, what he was in the first movie. Right. So it's no surprise that he doesn't have that, he doesn't really know what a real relationship is like.
Yeah, but okay. Excuse me. Exactly. You put your finger right on it. But it says something when he is the guy supposed to be the hero of our thing, and everybody else in the movie has a more interesting relationship with his father than he does with his girlfriend.
With both his fathers, in fact.
Yeah, exactly. That's the real love relationship. That's the real love triangle that's in this movie.
Yeah.
Peter with his two dads.
Well, and I think James Gunn knew that, because they knew what was going to happen in Infinity War, and so they knew they didn't want to, push things too far with it. So they knew like what they were going to do. They knew what they wanted to focus on. And James Gunn was smart to say, you know what, let's pull back from the Peter Gamora thing, and instead we reference it, like the Sam and Diane thing from Cheers. We play with that a little bit instead. And there is that moment at the end where she's looking at him and he looks back at her and he's like, what? And she's like, it's just some unspoken thing.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect way to leave their relationship, because then it's when they're actually facing death in Infinity War, and when they're facing down Thanos, that's when she's able to finally break down the walls and tell him how he feels.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Now that you put it in context, I can see that. Yeah, like you said, they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
They knew where the relationship was going to go, and Infinity War and what. Yeah. So they had to save that. They had to save that particular payoff for that movie and not do it in this one.
Yeah. And also another relationship that I wasn't expecting to see, and how it developed as much as it was, and also put it into the context of what we see in Infinity War and Endgame, is Nebula and Gamora.
Yeah. That really surprised me as well, because first of all, I didn't expect Nebula to be as important to this movie as she eventually turned out to be.
Yeah.
I mean, when she showed up, I said, "Oh wow, Nebula," you know. And then, you know, by the time the movie ends up, she's a member of the team, practically.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she basically is. And then in that gets picked up because now at the end of Endgame, she is part of the team.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then that's what much of the movie, like I said before, the whole thing between her and Peter, that's not really the relationship in this movie. The real relationship that she has in this movie is with her sister.
Yeah.
You know, Gamora. Gamora and what's her name?
Nebula.
Yeah, Nebula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, almost all the relationships in this movie, they all revolve around family, right? So you got the sisters, Gamora and Nebula, and you've got you've got Rocket and Groot, like almost like a father and son thing. You've got Quill and Yondu, and Quill and Ego, which is father and son in both cases, and then you've got Rocket and Yondu. It's almost like kind of like a brother type relationship, and then you've got Drax and Mantis, which she kind of becomes like a stand-in for his daughter.
Yeah, yeah. That I kind of like the thing that they didn't go into the romantic kind of angle. That it's more like a father-daughter type of thing. So it's different. It's all different types of relationships as well, and that's what this movie is really. Which is what I always tell people all the time. Listen, if you have good motivation for your characters to be doing what they're doing, and there's good relationship between those characters, okay, you've got a solid story, and that's what you have here. And also, again, I always point out to people when they talk about, because usually people consider characterization to be, okay, you have to stop the plot dead, and you have to have two or more characters sitting down and just yada yada yada, going back and forth. This movie is like a masterclass in how you can have action and be having the characterization while you're doing the action.
Oh yeah, like every piece of. Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No. I was just going to say that you do not have to slow down the action for characterization.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like this. There is not a wasted conversation in this movie. Every conversation contributes to the overall plot and the character development. And
yeah.
And I just going back to the relationships. There's another one as you were talking that I just thought of. The relationship between Kraglin and Quill. Right? There's not a lot of it there, but it is kind of like this sibling rivalry thing for your father's affections, because Quill is the favorite son, and Kraglin has that moment where he's like, I'm the one who stands up for you all the time. Even after Quill has betrayed us, you still want to go easy on him. And so it is like this, the spurned son thing going on there.
A minor character who suddenly becomes very important because of his relationship to Yondu.
Yeah.
And again, I always tell people, for me, dialogue is supposed to do one of a couple of things. It's supposed to provide information, it's supposed to review a character, and it's supposed to move the plot along. Doesn't have to do all three at the same time, but it definitely has to do one, and two is even better. That's what the dialogue in this movie does. It's either revealing character, or it's moving the plot along, or it's giving you information, which is what you need to keep the movie going.
Yeah, and I want to especially call out Dave Bautista, because we're talking about the relationship between him and Mantis. Like, Bautista really shows off his acting chops in this movie, and like, go ahead.
No. I'm just going to say that he walks a very fine line in this movie, and he does it very well.
He does it extremely well. Like, there's that first scene when him and Mantis are alone together, and he's being Drax. Right, he's being his, boorish, uncouth self. He's being rude without even realizing it. He was like, "Why would Ego want to keep such an ugly pet?" He's like, most people want pets that are cute. And then he switched, and then he says, "You remind me of my daughter." And Mantis like, "Oh, was she disgusting too?" And and there's just this subtle difference in Bautista's face, and he just goes, "No, she was innocent."
Yeah. Okay, here's the thing with Drax. He is alien, not just because he looks funny.
Mm.
He's alien because his perception is different from everybody else's. He perceives things that he takes in information differently from other characters, and he puts it back out in a way. He says more by the way that he sees things in what he says than any other character. And like you said, it's very easy for a lesser talent to make Drax a buffoon.
Right.
And try to get laughs every time by a buffoon. But no, Bautista makes him a real character in that he perceives things differently from the rest of the cast. And he's not saying things to be mean or spiteful on purpose, but that's just how he perceives, the information. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's really it really is. It's a remarkable job of acting.
Every time I watch this movie, I get more and more impressed by his performance in it, because he just does so much with so little. And he's very funny, especially the first time you watch it, man. He's hilarious. But after you've seen it a few times, you start to notice all the other things he's putting into his performance.
Yeah, and it would be very easy for him to be satisfied with that. Well, I just make him the funny big guy.
Right.
But Bautista is very smart. He doesn't do that.
Well, in fact, I remember that was one of the criticism a lot of people had, was they're like, oh, well, Drax is just here to make jokes. And I'm like, well, no, he's not. He's got a lot more going on there.
And the reason why it's funny is because he's not trying to be funny. When Drax says something, he's just spewing back info. He is just relating the information as it was given to him.
Oh, that scene when him and Quill are having the talk about dancing,
right? And
he describes his late wife, and he says there are two types of people: those who dance and those who do not. And he's like, I first met my beloved at a war rally. Everyone was dancing except for one woman. She was not moving a muscle. One would almost think she was dead. And he just says it completely deadpan, and he's completely serious. And then when he says it, he's like, it would make my nether regions engorged.
And it's funnier because he says it. So, to him, he is relating a very deep emotional moment for him.
Yeah. And it's funny because Quill, you can tell and Quill's making a joke of it. He's like, yeah, that sounds really hot. And he's just like, oh, you have no idea.
Yeah. And Drax doesn't get that he's being made fun. Yeah, it's, the interaction between these characters is a lot of what makes, these two movies work, but especially this one, because you just enjoy seeing these characters interact with each other back and forth.
Well, there's that. I also love that other part when they're on Ego's planet and Drax is asking all these questions about like how would you have sex with a human woman, and he says what everybody else is thinking.
Yeah.
So he's like, did you make a penis? It's like, well, and Quill's like, why are you asking him that? It's like, well, what, don't you want to know? Aren't you curious?
Yeah. It's like, okay, know what that reminds me of? It's my favorite scene in Clerks.
Oh, I think you mean Mallrats when you meet Stan Lee?
No. I mean Clerks. The Clerks where the guy is arguing with his girlfriend. Dante is arguing with his girlfriend, and she reveals that she's sucked 37 dicks.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a guy buying a pack of cigarettes, and he says, 37 dicks? And he asks her, wait a minute, I messed up the line.
Yeah, she's like, she storms out, and he goes after her. He's like trying to suck any dick on the way to the parking lot, and then another guy starts walking after her.
Yeah.
And then he goes back inside, and
in a row, he asks.
Yeah. The guy comes up to buy something. He's like, 37. My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks in a row.
That's it. Okay. Now, that scene is so funny to me because that's a question I would probably ask myself. That would occur, what, in a row? We get all at one time, everything. So, yeah, that scene with Drax where where he asks him Kurt Russell is pontificating and he's talking about how he created life and he made this body and it's anatomically correct. He's got a digestive system, everything like that. And Drax says, well, do you got a penis? And everybody's going, whoa, hey, wait a minute. And he said, what? He said, it's a perfectly reasonable question. And he's right. It is.
He is right, yeah. And I love how he he talks about how he's like, what? He's like, there's nothing disgusting about it. He's like, it's natural. He's like, my father would tell the story of impregnating my mother every winter solstice. You Earthers have hang-ups.
Yeah, seriously. Because, listen, there are some perfectly reasonable questions that, you would ask in those. See, society says that you're not supposed to say that because that's rude. Listen, if I met an alien being and he kept going on and on about how he had created a body that was anatomically correct in every kind of way, I would ask him, what? And to give Ego his credit, he says, yeah, I do have one. He said, then it's pretty damn good.
He's like, yeah, I got a penis. It's not half bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah.
And then Drake's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, the reason I thought you were talking about Mallrats is because there's that scene in Mallrats where Brody meets Stan Lee, and he's asking him all these questions about Marvel heroes and their sex organs. Right? He's like, Mr. Fantastic, can he stretch every part of his body? Is his dick covered in orange rock? And it's like, well, you know what? That's why I thought of that, because I'm like, well, yeah, those are questions that people probably would not vocalize, but they wonder about.
That scene probably did not occur to me because I've seen Clerks way more than I've seen Mallrats.
Okay.
I've seen Clerks maybe a dozen times, and Mallrats I've only seen 2 or 3.
Yeah. Mallrats, when I first saw it, Mallrats was my favorite of his movies, but over time it's become my least favorite. Yeah.
I mean, and I saw Mallrats because everybody was oh man, Mallrats, you gotta see Mallrats, And I say, yeah, okay, yeah, it's good. I like Mallrats, but I love Clerks.
Yeah, Mallrats, the humor just doesn't hold up as well with Mallrats.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. I mean, I can watch Mallrats now and I'll chuckle. But I watch Clerks and I'm still laughing out loud at some of the stuff that goes on, even though I know the jokes will come, which to me is the true test of a comedy movie. Even though I know the jokes will come in, I still laugh. Yeah, that's funny.
Well, we were talking about this in your Usumi Dero group on Facebook, where you asked people about Airplane and Young Frankenstein. And I'm like, well, the first time you're watching it, Airplane's the funnier movie. But if you're watching it the second, third, or fourth time, Young Frankenstein is funnier because the jokes hold up.
Yeah. Young Frankenstein, matter of fact, Young Frankenstein is the better movie than Airplane, simply because the humor works because there's so much story.
Yeah.
The story has a support. It's much more story orientated.
Right. Whereas the humor in Airplane, it's there because it's a funny gag they thought of. It has no connection to the story.
Exactly. And the humor is of the type that it's just throwing jokes at you. So even if you don't get one or you don't think one that's funny, don't worry about it. Here comes another one.
Right. And that's fine. That works the first time you watch a movie like that because you don't know what to expect. You don't know what's coming next. But when you expect those kind of jokes, they don't land as well.
Right. See, Young Frankenstein, you can watch it just for the story.
Right.
Over and over because it's a great story. Matter of fact, if you took all the comedy out of it, you'd have a decent Frankenstein movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You would have a solid Frankenstein movie. That's the genius of that movie, which I tell people all the time, even though Blazing Saddles is my favorite Mel Brooks movie, Young Frankenstein is his masterpiece. That's the better movie.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Okay, let's see.
Digression number one,
yeah. So one of the things I liked about this too was how they were able to work in the pop culture in such a natural way, with, when how I love how Peter's pop culture influences are starting to infect the rest of the crew. So at the beginning, there's that scene where Rocket's trying to set up the speakers so they can listen to music as they fight. And Drax's like, why is that important? And Rocket's like, well, it's because Quill wants it. And Quill's like, no, I agree with Drax. And it's like, no, it's really Rocket who wants to listen to music as they're working.
And you know what? And I think it is just so utterly brilliant to use, of all things, 70s pop music in a futuristic space opera.
Yeah.
And the music actually works in the context, you know. I don't know why it works for me, but it just does.
Well, in fact, in this, like I said this as well, I think the soundtrack for part 1 was a better soundtrack, like it had a better selection of songs, but the soundtrack in part 2, it fits the movie better.
Yeah, it does.
Like you've got the Cat Stevens song at the end, Father and Son. You've got Brandy, which is actually a plot point in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that scene where Kurt Russell, is actually explaining the song in the context of his life. That's I love that scene.
That is such a great moment. Yeah. And then when he's oh God, there's so many good songs in it. But even just like the small things, like the George Harrison song playing as they arrive on Ego's planet, or the significance of the Fleetwood Mac song, The Chain, right? Especially because they play it twice in the movie. They play it once when the team is breaking up and they're at kind of like their wits' end, right? They had already crashed. Rocket and Quill had gotten into this big fight. They were all kind of at each other's throats. And so the song is kind of like broken at that point. But then they bring it back at the end.
Right, when he's
fighting Ego. And he has and he's remembering his mom. He's remembering Yondu. He's remembering like laughing with the crew. And it starts playing again, and it fits perfectly.
And they've got, of course, the great opening sequence where Groot is dancing to Mr. Blue Sky. With that whole sequence actually kind of sets the whole tone of the movie.
It does, yeah. And also something else I love, which they pick up from the first movie and they elaborate on in here, is the fact that Drax disapproves of dancing. Because there's that scene at the end of the first movie where baby Groot is starting to wake up and he starts dancing to I Want You Back. And when Drax looks, he freezes.
Yeah.
And then it happens again here in the opening credits, right? He's dancing around as the battle's going around. And then Drax falls next to him and he freezes again. And when Drax looks away, he starts to move. He looks again, then he freezes again. And then it connects because he gives the speech to Quill about how, I'm not attracted to women who dance. And how dancing is pathetic.
And how adorable is it that in the middle of fighting an interdimensional space monster, the team still takes time to make sure that Groot doesn't get hurt.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, when Gamora's shouting at him, like, get out of the way, and then he's just waving at her, and she's like, hi.
yeah, he turns around and waves at her, like, hi, Gamora.
And then when he eats one of the bugs, and then Rocket flies over, and he's like, no, spit it out.
Yeah, exactly. Rocket stops fighting the monster to come over, spit it out. And then he picks up his honking huge ray gun and goes back to fight the monster.
What I love too is the whole focus on that scene is not the battle; it's all on Groot's dancing.
Yeah.
And
you just kind of see him in the background,
right.
Flying around, shooting the ray guns and everything like that. Yeah.
And that's a perfect way to describe like this series, because it's not about the space battles, right? It is about the characters that are more important in these movies.
Right. And Groot can dance.
Oh yeah. Well, that's James Gunn doing the motion capture on that.
Really?
Yeah, he did the motion capture for Groot's dancing. But yeah, you know what? I mean, plus, I remember when it was leading up to it and they were talking about Baby Groot being in the movie. Everybody was getting pissed off, and they're like, "Oh, this is like the Disneyfication of Marvel." And Baby Groot's one of my favorite characters.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? I love the scene where Baby Groot is actually made the mascot, to the Ravagers, and he's like pissed. He is so pissed off that he doesn't know what to do.
Well, I love it when Taserface, when they ask him, "What should we do with this one?" He's like, "No, it's too adorable to kill."
Yeah.
But he says it in like this harsh pirate voice.
He's like, no, he's too adorable to kill. No, we can't kill him. And he's right. He's too adorable to kill. And they dress him up in a little, costume and everything like that. And they pour beer on him. And he is just so pissed off. He doesn't know what to do with his own bullet. And then he gets revenge on the guy later on.
But you know what? That scene leads into what is, without a doubt for me, the funniest scene in the movie, when Yondu and Rocket are trying to tell him what he needs to get.
Yeah.
And he's bringing he brings the severed toe. And he's like, wait a minute, do you guys have a fridge with severed toes somewhere on the ship?
Yeah.
And Yondu just shakes his head, and Rock's like, all right, let's just agree to never speak of this again.
He said, please tell me you got a freezer someplace with a bunch of body parts. Please tell me that. Again, it's another great scene where, Yondu and Rocket, they're bonding. But then, I don't know, the bonding to me really takes a dark turn after that, because during their escape from their cell and on the ship, they massacred the entire crew.
Oh, yeah.
Of the ship. It's a bloodbath. And at one point, they're laughing maniacally while they're killing everybody.
Oh, yeah. And then I love that. I wanted to go back to the Groot thing. When he
go ahead.
When he takes the badge, and he's like, it's got this symbol on it, he gives it to Groot. And Groot takes it and he puts it on his head thinking it's a hat. And then he explains why he doesn't like hats. It's because if
it's a whole conversation, that he's having about why he doesn't like hats. And Yondu is like, you know what? I really don't care why he doesn't like hats. Go get the fin.
And even Rocket's surprised, like, that's why you don't like hats?
Yeah, he's like, really? He's like, oh, wow. And you know what? You would think that joke would get old after a while, but it never gets old. That all he says is, I am Groot. But apparently everybody understands all these complicated concepts that he's put into those 3 words. I am Groot,
Yeah, there was in the Guardians of the Galaxy comic book that Abnett and Lanning did, they're the ones who introduced the whole I am Groot thing, because in the comics before that, Groot could actually speak. But Abnett and Lanning thought this would be a funny thing to have just have him be unable to say anything but I am Groot. And they meet the Inhumans in one part, and they're talking with Maximus the Mad. And Maximus can actually understand and communicate with Groot perfectly. And he says, like, no, Groot is actually very articulate. He's speaking a whole other language. He's the smartest one out of all of you.
Okay.
So yeah, there's just little, and that I like how they translate that over, and I hope they never get rid of that. I love that he only just says I am Groot.
Oh yeah. They should never have him say it, because if they do, then the joke. But like I said, they get a lot of mileage out of something that you figured that would get old real quick, but it never gets. But it never gets old because of the responses of the other characters.
Yeah, and you know what? How nice must it be for Vin Diesel? Because he gets paid, he gets a bag of money just to come in and say 3 words over and over again.
Nah, I am Groot. That's it. That's all he get. And like you said, I'd hate to see the bag of money he's dragging away just for this. But I do like the thought of I like the thought of Sylvester Stallone popping up and being part of this universe.
Well, not only him, but you've also got Michelle Yeoh, Ving Rhames, Michael Rosenbaum. All of them are part of the original Guardians of the Galaxy.
As the original, right? Yeah, as the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah.
Oh, and then there's Mainframe, voiced by Miley Cyrus.
Right.
And yeah, you know what? That's one of the things at the end of this movie. I want to see a Ravager movie with all of them together with Michael Rooker.
Well, you know what? That's kind of what I figured. I said, you know what? I wonder if they have all of these actors together in one shot. Maybe they're teasing a future spin-off Guardians of the Galaxy movie or something like that with them as the original Guardians or whatever.
Yeah, I think they would call it like the Ravagers or something like that.
The Ravagers, yeah.
But yeah, I would love to see that. You got all this great talent in that sequence.
Oh yeah, when I saw Sylvester, I said, "Oh shit, Sylvester Stallone." But you know what? Okay, even though it's just a cameo, it didn't feel like it was a cameo just for the sake of them saying, "Okay, well, we got Sylvester Stallone for a couple of days. We threw him in here." There's real gravitas and weight to the scenes he has with Yondu.
Yeah.
It's a brief scene, but there's a whole history that's implied in that scene that they have together.
Yeah. that was, and it was such a good use of all those characters, and especially, like you said, Stallone, bringing him in that moment, and like I didn't realize at first that he was Starhawk. I think that was the character's name in the comics.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Well, that's the actual name of the Starhawk character, and he has those little fins on his suit, like Starhawk.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because Starhawk has them like over his head, like the kind of like the Havoc type wire things.
Right.
And he's got the gauntlets. So they modernize it and they put those, instead of putting it on his head, they put it over his shoulders and they give him the gauntlets. And it was a really good way to design the character. And yeah, I just love, and he was really good like that. You get every sense of their entire relationship right in those few moments they have together.
And I mean, they have a scene, maybe it's like a minute, maybe two, but yeah, it's like a whole history is implied, which again is a testament to the acting abilities of not only Michael Rooker, but Sylvester Stallone, who I don't care what none of y'all say. Sylvester Stallone is a damn good actor when he wants to be.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sylvester Stallone can act. Now, we've been going on and on for a while, but we have not addressed the man who is undoubtedly the linchpin of this movie and the guy who, as far as I'm concerned, he should have got an Academy Award for this. Okay. Kurt Russell.
Yes. Yeah. You know, Kurt Russell, I love how he's doing these movies now where it's clear he's just having a whole lot of fun. Like he does this, he does the Fast and the Furious movies, and he's just enjoying being Kurt Russell.
Yeah, he goes through this movie completely effortlessly, and it's a testament to his acting ability that I was actually really, really upset when he turned out to be the bad guy, because I wanted so much to see Kurt Russell as Ego in future Marvel movies.
Well, not only that, but just like he's so good at playing like a caring father.
Yeah.
Right? Like that when he comes to him first, and he starts talking to him, and just like everything about him, he does it so earnestly that you totally buy into this. Like even I've seen this movie like about a dozen times maybe, but I'm still surprised. I still am like a little surprised every time he turns out to be evil.
Yeah, you know what? I so much was so disappointed. I said, wait a minute, you mean he really is the bad guy?
Yeah.
No, maybe he's just doing this, to fake out the real bad guy, whoever that is. I said, no, Kurt, really?
Like especially that scene when they come back to and he's teaching Peter about the energy, and he tells him how to summon the energy and shape it, and they play catch together. Like that. Oh god, that scene gets me every time.
Every time it gets me when they're just playing. Yeah, they're playing catch with the ball of energy. It just gets. I mean, like I said, Kurt Russell, from his first scene to his last, he just moved through this movie effortlessly. And when he's explaining about it, I love that scene where he's explaining about his origins and how he came to Earth and everything. Like he's got a kind of, how can I put this? He's got a kind of subdued majesty.
Yeah.
About him, even though he's speaking in very plain terms. It's not a bombastic speech, but he gives it a grandeur.
Yes.
Just through his body language, his gestures, and of course his voice. Because now, by now he's a little bit older, Kurt Russell has learned how to use his voice in some amazing ways. He conveys a lot of emotion in his voice.
And he also, like, going back to what you said about kind of like undercutting that majesty, is just like the little asides he does, right? So like when they're on the planet and they're sitting around the campfire and he's talking about his home planet and everything, and then he's all of a sudden he's like, sorry, I got to go take a whiz.
Yeah.
Or when he takes, and then he says, I'm a celestial. And then Peter's like, you're a god? He goes, well, small G.
Yeah, it's a little small G. He said, in those moments, I feel humble like Drax.
Yeah. And also the scene we mentioned, the whole, yes, Drax, I got a penis moment. And it's not half bad.
Yeah. And okay, those are the moments that bring him down to a human level. Where he's smiling and he's good. He had me at the scene where he was just sitting by the campfire, which is a very human thing to do. To sit by a campfire with a bunch of people and just talk. I mean, Kurt Russell for me, this is his movie from start to finish. He,
Absolutely,
he steals every scene he's in, and he is nothing less than total believe. And like I said, it's a testimony that even when they're having the fight scene and stuff like that, I was still hoping against hope that, yeah, okay, well, you know what? He's going to fake him out at the end. He's really doing this to protect Peter against,
Right.
There's some other celestial somewhere that,
Yeah,
that's what I kept hoping.
I was thinking the same thing too, and also I love the David Hasselhoff cameo.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Because that is such a thing that a little kid would do, right? He showed all the other kids saying like, well, my dad's actually David Hasselhoff, or Sardu Hasselfrau, as Gamora thought he said. And she's like, well, why did he have a talking car again? It's like, to fight crime.
And considering that David Hasselhoff does have a history with Marvel, I like the fact that they had him pop up in here.
Not only that, and he contributed the song to the soundtrack too. The only original piece of music on the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's the one that's playing at the end, right? Oh,
yeah,
over the credits, yeah.
And but yeah, for him to come back and to dress up as Michael Knight, I love that just for that one moment. And let's see, what else do I want to talk about here? Oh, got to talk about Taserface.
Now that's a character from the comics.
It is, yeah. In fact,
okay,
a while back, Gunn posted a photo of the comic book character on social media. And this is after he got the job of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And he said, this is the dumbest character of all time, and I'd never put him in a movie. And then he felt that the character had given himself the name Taserface and is a real dumbass.
Yeah. I mean, the exchange between him and Rocket, when Rocket finds out his name, he said, wait a minute. Not only is that your name, but you gave yourself that name? Are you shitting me? Taserface. Oh,
and he's like, Taserface. And then Rocket just starts laughing. And he says, what was your second choice? Scrotum face?
Yeah. And then when he contacts the woman in charge of the Sovereign, that golden skin race,
yeah,
and and this is his dying declaration now, and he's telling you make sure you tell him that the man that brought about his doom was named Taserface. She cracks up. She said, "What? Are you serious? Taserface?" She cracks up.
Yeah.
Oh man. But and speaking of them, I really liked that teaser that they put in at the end, that this is the race that apparently is going to create Adam Warlock.
Yeah.
I stood up and I said, "Oh my God, Adam Warlock, who is one of my all-time favorite Marvel characters."
During that brief period when James Gunn was fired, I was really disappointed because he had set all this stuff up for a third movie, right? You got these new relationships with these characters. You've got, after Endgame, possibly Thor being in the mix as well, and then and you got Adam Warlock coming in too. So the third movie is set up to be really impressive.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad they resolved all that.
Same here.
Which to me, frankly, it was a bunch of bullshit. You and I have talked about this not only privately but on this podcast. You know what? I am not a big fan of people combing through the internet, looking on Twitter or Facebook for stuff that people said, 10, 15 years ago, and then holding up, said, see, they're really a horrible person.
When and also there's also context behind that too, because he was working for Troma at the time, which is known for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And anybody, Troma was like, I mean, I'm not a big Troma fan, but I am well aware of the culture that they fostered when they were very popular.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I understood why. I don't know. Okay, maybe I should just go ahead and just release all of the stupid things that I've said 30 years ago and just get it out the way so everybody can hate me and say, well, I'm not going to read his books or listen to his podcast anymore because he's a horrible human being. Mm-hmm. Because what he said, okay, Was it stupid? Okay, yeah, maybe it was stupid. But you know what? It was years ago. People evolve.
Yeah.
Their attitudes change. I don't want to be held responsible for the things that I said 30 years ago when I didn't know any better.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And I don't now the only way that I will hold you accountable for what you said 30 years ago is if you're still saying it now.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're still exhibiting that behavior.
Well,
but if you're not,
just a digression then about that. What do you think of the Hartley Sawyer firing from The Flash?
To be honest, I don't know that much about it. I don't know that much about him. I only know he played the elongated man. I didn't read any of that stuff, what he said. I mean,
I read some of it, and it was stupid, but it didn't seem like he was intentionally trying to be malicious. Just felt like he was trying to do like the internet shock humor thing and was just being bad at it. So like, I think the biggest thing I think though is just like, if you're going to get a job on a network TV show, why the hell wouldn't you go through and use tweet delete?
What's that?
It's like, it's this website or program you can go through and you can search through your tweets, your old tweets. You can erase them easily.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, really, if you're, because it's gotten to the point now that where, if you are going to go into the entertainment field or something like that, you really need to invest a little bit of money and clean up your internet footprint as much as possible.
Right.
Because there are people out there that have nothing better to do than go back years looking for this stuff.
Yeah.
Just so they can pull it out. And like I said, see, they're really this horrible person. Well,
one thing I found too while looking into this on Twitter, because I kind of fell down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I found out there's an anti-Danielle Panabaker contingent on Twitter because she apparently undermined Candace Patton, because like when Flash was in his first season, there was talk of like a Caitlin and Barry relationship. And and apparently because Panabaker referenced it a few times in interviews, that suddenly that meant that she was trying to undermine Candace Patton and she was racist or something like this. I'm like, where do people come up with this stuff?
You know why? Because people, A, have too much time on their hands. B, a lot of people that are on the internet are idiots. Yeah. And I'm sorry. Yeah, they are. They are. They're okay. When I was growing up, right, you used to see these people. How can I put this? You used to see these people elsewhere. These were the people that would call up the local newspapers and say that they saw Bigfoot or they saw flying saucers, or, they believed in all kinds of crazy, stupid things. These were the people that bought the Enquirer, the National Enquirer.
Oh, yeah.
Where you had stories about people with alien babies and
Bat Boy.
Proof, Bat Boy and stuff like that. Okay. All of those people are now on the internet.
Yeah.
They are. Which is why the National Enquirer went out of business. People don't read that anymore. They don't have to, because now they have the internet.
Right. Yeah. They can get it all. They can get all their crazy pumped directly into their brains for free.
Exactly. That's where all these people are now.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately for us, these people are a lot louder than the rest of us who have good common sense. They are. Because you know what? They have nothing else to do with their lives than be on the internet 24/7. See, whereas most of us have lives that we get off the internet every once in a while and we go live those lives, these people don't. They have nothing else to do but be on the internet.
Right. Okay. Now, bringing it back to the movie and actually talking about crazy people is kind of a nice transition, because I want to talk a little bit about Mantis and Pom Klementieff. Like, I know she's nothing like the Mantis from the comic books, but you know what?
No.
The Mantis from the comics, honestly, never really impressed me.
The Mantis from the comics was never that great a character. I don't care what anybody tries to tell you. She was never that great a character to begin with.
Yeah. And like all her constantly calling herself this one and all that kind of stuff. I did not care about her at all. But
yeah, and
all due respect to Steve Englehart, he's a great creator, but I don't agree when he says he was disappointed with this character.
He was disappointed.
He was disappointed with the character in the movie, yeah, because he said that character has nothing to do with Mantis.
And thank God for that, because
Honestly,
this one is much better than, again, no disrespect to Steve Englehart, I love his work, but yeah, the Mantis, I mean, from the comic books, yeah, I mean, apparently he thought this was an incredibly fascinating character. You know.
Oh my God, he put her in everything. So much so that he even created like another version when he moved over to DC or something.
Really?
Something like that. Yeah, like he created a similar type character that was supposed to be like Mantis transplanted into the DC universe. Much like, which, you know, some creators will do that sometimes. There was they did that with Jack Kirby did that with the New Gods. Right? The New Gods were supposed to be like what happens after Ragnarok.
Right, yeah. Yeah, because as a matter of fact, that's how it starts off. It starts off with Ragnarok. The first page, the splash panel.
Yeah.
Howard Chaykin did that, where he brought a character called the Scorpion.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that, I believe, for Atlas Comics. And there was only like 1 or 2 issues of the character. And then he brought him over to Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And what was he called? He gave him a completely different name. I'm trying to remember what it was.
I don't know, but I do know that they did bring Barry Allen over. Like they brought him over in Quasar. It was supposed to be like after Crisis, he had actually ended up in the Marvel Universe, and he was called like Flash Forward or something like that, or Fast Forward. Yeah. And he appears, he's got like a beard and everything, and it's very much like that character.
Oh, okay.
And also Peter David, you know, he was doing Supergirl, and he eventually, I don't know, he left the book or something, but he continued telling the stories over at I want to say Image under the Fallen Angel title. And it was basically supposed to be like a continuation.
And who was it? I think it was Rich Buckler. He had a character called Devil Slayer or Demon Slayer. He did variations of this character like 3 different comic book companies.
Yeah. So yeah, they've done this kind of stuff a lot. But yeah, there was something I remember reading somewhere. I can't find it right now, but that Englehart had wanted to continue doing the Mantis story, and so he had. Here we go. In the Eclipse, it was so in DC comic books, she appears as Willow, and it's Justice League of America number 142, and she refers to herself as this one, and then later, Englehart moved to Eclipse Comics, and he in the Scorpio Rose title, the character calls herself Lorelei, and that's also supposed to be Mantis.
But wasn't Scorpio Rose? Wasn't that supposed to be another version of Madame Xanadu?
Oh, I have no clue.
Oh, okay.
This is actually the first time I've ever heard about Scorpio Rose.
Oh, okay. But getting back to the movie, for all intents and purposes, this Mantis in this movie is an original character.
Yeah, and you know, and she's great. I love the relationship she has with Drax. I love her like awkward social interactions, and because the way she interacts, it totally makes sense for someone who has never had any social interaction. So like right at the beginning when she introduces herself and then she tries to force a smile.
I love because Drax says, "What the hell? So what are you doing?"
Even Drax is like, "What is wrong with you?"
He said, "What is that you're trying?" She says, "Well, I'm smiling." He said, "Please stop it.
Yeah,
don't do that anymore. No, that's not smile. Whatever it is you're doing is not smiling."
And then she sees Rocket. She's like, "Can I pet your puppy?"
And he tries to bite the shit out of her. And Drax, of course, thinks it's hilarious. He said, "Oh, that's what we call a practical joke."
And then she doesn't understand it, but then she starts laughing. She's like, "Oh, it's very funny."
Yeah, she doesn't get it, but you know, you know what? She's just trying to be one of the gang, which I found very endearing and made me like the character right away. In that, first of all, she admits that she said, "Well, listen, ego raised me and whatnot. I don't know anything about social interactions or anything like that, but I'm trying to learn." And that's very endearing that she just right from the start, she wants to be one of the gang,
Yeah.
so to speak.
It really makes her evolution make a lot of sense when she agrees to betray Ego to help them.
Yeah, and she matures very quickly in this movie.
Right.
Because she starts out of like kind of childlike, but she realizes that the plan that Ego has, is wrong. It's like she's just waiting for the right moment to spill the beans. And when she does, of course, and we find out the monstrous scope of his plan, it's even, but like I said, I was even still waiting at, well, it's not really Ego. It's another Celestial. That's what I said. That's what it is. It's another Celestial.
Yeah. Also, one of the things I like is that they really showcase Rocket's technical superiority, like his how well he works with machines and planning. Because when he sets up that whole elaborate trap for the Ravagers to walk into, when they're in the woods, and he sets up the whole thing with all these traps that start firing stuff at them.
This movie establishes that despite his appearance and despite whatever Gamora may say, anything like that, Rocket is the most dangerous member of the team.
Oh yeah, definitely. And especially when they have him on the ground, right? And they're like, "Oh, what do you do now?" And then he still kicks their asses.
He still, It's well, you don't have your gadgets or anything like that, and he still kicks their ass and everything like that. Which is why Yondu comes with about 100 more guys. And he said, "Yeah," but that scene shows that not only is he technically proficient, which we already knew, but he shows a definite talent for combat strategy.
Yeah. Ever since I read the Guardians of the Galaxy comic, because I'd read this new version of the Guardians before I saw the movie, but even back then, like Rocket was my favorite character in the series, and he still remains. He's still my favorite character in this series.
Yeah, I like how they establish how that he's not there for comedy relief. He and if you underestimate him because of his size and you think he's just this cute furry animal, well, he's gonna hand you your ass.
Well, and that's also like Bradley Cooper, just such a good job voicing this character. I think that at one point they were trying to go for like a Jason Statham type character, because if you remember, in Guardians appeared in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and Rocket was voiced by kind of like a British Jason Statham sounding kind of guy. And even in like the video games before the first movie came out, it was the same thing. But and at first, like, oh, that's an interesting choice. Now though, I can't picture anyone other than Bradley Cooper.
No, I can't. No, I can't. If they ever decide that Bradley Cooper doesn't want to do it anymore, well, retire the character.
As much as I'd hate to see that happen, I'm tempted to agree with you.
Well, how many more Guardians of the Galaxy movies do you think? I mean, we know that there's definitely a third one that's going to be coming up.
I mean, you know what? If they want to keep making them, I mean, hell, I just want a Rocket and Groot series.
Yeah, because you know what? There's really no reason for them. It's not like, okay, where you would have to stop making them after a while because all of the cast members have left it. You could bring in new cast members to be new Guardians.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because they haven't even scratched the surface of how many characters have been Guardians in the comics.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, you could even have, we were talking about Sylvester Stallone in the originals. You could bring them in, have Sylvester Stallone take over being the leader if for one reason or another. Because eventually Chris Pratt, I think that he's going to move on to something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And especially Zoe Saldana as well, because she's probably the biggest actress in this movie.
Yeah.
Aside, I mean, of the regular cast, Kurt Russell obviously would be bigger, but I'd love to see that happen. Or now that they got the X-Men rights, you could even bring in some Starjammers characters, some of the Shi'ar characters as well. There's a lot like this. This movie, this franchise is like the perfect gateway to the cosmic side of the Marvel universe. Much more so even than Captain Marvel, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, with Captain Marvel, you can do 3-4 Captain Marvel movies and that's it. But with Guardians of the Galaxy, you could conceivably keep this thing going because it's a whole range of space-based Marvel characters. Hell, we see Howard the Duck is in this movie. You could have Howard the Duck join the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, and also Seth Green voicing him as well.
Yeah.
And
So
I would love to see him in a bigger part at some point.
yeah, so I mean, we could have conceivably 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. They could keep this going at it. Yeah.
And let's see what else I want to mention here. Oh, Nebula. Like that's another character who I think is like I never cared much for Nebula in the comic books, but I love what they've done with her in these movies. And I think a big part of that is just Karen Gillan's performance is so good.
She, you know what? She's always impressed. Even though, and I know people, okay, Tom DJ, he's going to hear this and he's going to hate me for this because I could never stand her character on Doctor Who. I didn't like Amy Pond. I like Karen Gillan. I like her, but I didn't like her character. She's a very good actress. I did not know how good actress she was until I started seeing her in these Marvel movies. You know, she's very good.
Yeah. And especially, and then I saw her, I've only seen her in the Marvel movies, and then, so I've never been like a Doctor Who guy. I've only seen like a handful of episodes. So first time I saw her was Guardians of the Galaxy. And then after seeing these two movies, the Infinity War and Endgame, and then in Jumanji, like.
Yeah, I've seen her in Jumanji, yeah.
She is amazing. She is really good.
She is. She, you know what? She's one of these people, and I go back to, like, say, Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman, who was in the prequel trilogy, the Star Wars thing.
Right. She was also Jane Foster.
Right. Now, you look at her in those Star Wars movies, and then you see her in the Marvel movies, and you can see that she has definitely gotten more comfortable working with special effects.
Yeah.
She looked like she didn't know what she was supposed to be doing in the prequel, but that's because she's not.
Well, also, I think a big part of that is just George Lucas as well, because as we've mentioned before, as you mentioned, I think one of the last episodes, George Lucas doesn't like working with actors. So he's not able to really coach them through that. So not only is she in this situation where also she's still, I mean, she had done a bunch of stuff by that point, but she's still, a young actress, relatively inexperienced. And then you put her in this movie asking her to do all this stuff she's never done before, and the director doesn't want to work with you anyway. That makes it even doubly harder. But yeah, she's gotten a lot, fortunately she's had directors in these movies that they're willing to work with her, like Kenneth Branagh and whoever did Thor: The Dark World. I'm blanking right now.
Right. Now, I brought that up only to point out how fearless Karen Gillan is and how comfortable she is working with special effects movies like this, like right off the bat. It's like, she don't blink an eye. She just throws herself into it fearlessly. And she's in there.
And it's such a big difference. When I watch her in these movies and then I watch her in Jumanji, like first time I saw Jumanji, I did not realize that was Nebula.
Yeah.
Because she totally different characters, totally different movements, totally different voice, all of it. Like she does a wonderful job in this movie.
She's very good. Yeah, I really enjoy her a lot as Nebula. And like you said earlier, the relationship between her and her sister, matter of fact, Nebula takes a lot of different turns in all of the Marvel movies that she appears in. She never, you never know what she's going to do next.
Right.
Which is why I appreciate the character every time she showed. Like the first time she showed up in this movie, and I said, "Oh shit, where is she going to go now? Yeah. What is she going to do?" I had no idea what she was going to do. I love to see when she's on the ship and they're being attacked, by the Sovereign, and she just called them idiots. She said, "Well, out of all the people that I could be captured by, why do I have to be captured by these idiots?"
Yeah, yeah. And but I think, like, for me, I know you said Kurt Russell for you is the linchpin of this movie, but I really think it's Michael Rooker. And like, I think he really pulls this all together in a way that I was not expecting him to. Yeah.
I didn't expect his character to end up the way he did. But and of course, he just put the cap to that whole movie with that fantastic line where he says to Peter, he said, "Yeah, he may have been your father, but he sure as hell wasn't your daddy.
Yeah. Oh God, like I get choked up just thinking about that.
That says so much
Mhm.
right there.
Yeah.
And he sells that line. And once he says it, you understand the entire movie.
Yeah, and it's so funny. You would not have, if especially coming off the first movie, you would not expect Yondu to be the moral conscience for all these characters, for Rocket, for Peter.
Yeah, because he's the one that teaches them the life lessons that they need to learn to go on.
Yeah.
You know, through his relationship with Rocket, which, like you said, is kind of like a big brother to a little brother.
Yeah.
And Peter, you know, well, he's been the only father that he's known. But he's the one that teaches the both of them the life lessons that they're going to need to go on. And, you know, to become bigger men than what he was, because that's what every father wants. They want their sons to be better men than they are.
If I have one criticism of this movie, it's actually more that this was not set up a little bit better in the first movie. Because you do get a little bit of it, like that at that scene at the end when he opens the orb and he finds the troll and he realizes Peter's conned him. But instead of getting pissed off, he just smiles, right? There is that little moment where there's that little hint of like this kind of affection he has for Peter. But other than that, it doesn't really, there's not as much setup for that in this, I don't think. The whole father-son relationship. I don't think they set it up properly enough.
Well,
You know
they had a lot. Well, you know what? They had a lot to cover in this movie, because as we're talking about it, and when I was, like I said, when I was watching earlier today, I was surprised at how much there really is a lot to digest in this movie.
Oh yeah.
When you look at it, there really is a lot. And yeah, they didn't have time to adequately set up that whole thing.
Mhm.
But by this point, you've been with these characters to the point where you're willing to go along with it. And what's the best way I can put it? The emotion of the scenes that we've seen, because there's a lot of emotion that's in this movie. A lot of this movie runs on emotion, really.
Oh yeah.
You know, so you get caught up in the emotion of these, their emotional lives. Because these are very emotional characters. These are not characters who do a lot of intellectual headbanging. They're not. They're characters that run on emotion, their instincts, whatever. And I think that comes across in a lot of these scenes, because they're very emotional, powerful scenes, where even like in the scene where the two sisters, they're trying to kill each other. And even while they're trying to kill each other, they're still trying to resolve their issues.
Yeah.
It's a great scene where, you know, and we think that we think that Nebula is going to kill Gamora, but as it turns out, no, she just wants to prove that she's the better daughter.
Right. Well, not only that, she just wants to prove that she's as good as she is.
Yeah.
And you really start to understand why, and it makes sense. You understand why Nebula hates her. It's not just this sibling rivalry thing. It's because Thanos tore her body apart every time she'd lose.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Thanos made her suffer for it. Yeah.
And how is that not going to fuck up a little girl? But yeah, and then also, you know, I love, like, there's so many little moments in this movie, like Yondu floating down, holding the arrow, and then Peter remarking that he looks like Mary Poppins. And he's like, is he cool? Hell yeah, he's cool. He's like, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
And also when they're leaving at the end, and Groot says to Yondu, he's like, I am Groot. And then Yondu's like, what did he say? He's like, he said, welcome to the freaking Guardians of the Galaxy. Only you didn't use freaking.
And then he says to Groot, he said, I really got to talk to you about your language.
And that carries over into Infinity War, because we first see him, and then, you know, Quill's yelling at teenage Groot to put away the game. And he says, I am Groot. And everyone's like, whoa, what's with that? What's wrong with your language?
But, okay, now let me ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world with Rocket, we've seen how intelligent he is, how smart he is. Okay, if you're building a bomb, why wouldn't you just make one with just one button?
Well, I don't think he had a choice. He only had the components that he had access to at the time.
No, but wait a minute, but he makes the bomb, and right? But he makes one that has the timer that, okay, you press this button, you got 5 minutes. Then there's another button. If you press it, the bomb goes off right away. Why would you make a bomb with 2 buttons like that?
I don't think he did make it that way. Those are just the components he had on hand.
Oh, okay.
Like, if you're trying to
I got
rig something.
you, yeah.
And it was because, maybe there is a time, and he said he had the bomb. It was just a matter of, but he didn't have a remote detonator or anything like that. So he had to use a timer. So maybe if you had a remote detonator or something that would work. I don't know exactly, but for some reason, there may have been a reason why you would want to have a button on it that might trigger it right away. Whatever the case, though. Yeah.
Yeah, because they go through that whole little thing where he keeps telling him, he keeps telling Groot, okay, you got to press this button. Don't press that button. And Groot keeps saying, I am Groot. And he said, no, don't press that button. You'll blow us all up right away. You can't press that button.
But that's also one of those things that I don't really mind just because it's such a funny scene.
Yeah, well, of course, you get to have a little bit of comedy. And then they have the thing about that he needs some tape. And everybody's in the middle of this huge space battle. And what makes it funny is that we don't see what they're doing. We just hear the laser guns and the explosions and say, do you have tape? No, I don't have tape.
And I love when he goes to Drax and he's like, Drax, you have any tapes? Like, yeah, Scotch tape would work. Then why'd you ask if Scotch tape would work?
And then Peter comes back and he sticks his head in the hole. He said, nobody has any tape. He said,
did you ask Nebula?
Yeah, did you ask Nebula?
And that's another little good moment because it shows Quill is afraid of Nebula.
Yeah.
Because he says he hesitates, like, yes, I did. He's like, really? He's like, well, she was sitting next to Yondu when I asked him. Also, you got a nuclear bomb in your backpack. If everyone's got tape, it's gonna be you.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said, listen, if anybody would have tape, it would be you. Mm-hmm. You don't have any tape? No, I don't have any tape. Oh man.
But for me, like the moment when I never thought I would be so attached to Peter's Walkman of all things.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
Like when he crushes the Walkman, I'm like, I drew in a breath when the first time I saw that, and especially at the end when Pete starts to summon up the power and he's like, you shouldn't have killed my mom and smashed my Walkman. Like that, I felt that emotion.
Oh yeah. If you want to piss him off, that was the thing to do.
And I can understand. And I know people would, if you explain this to someone, they'd be like, "Well, it's just a Walkman." It's like, no, you don't. I understand that emotional connection to certain things. Like I've got these, especially something from your parents, and they're no longer with you. Like I've got these whiskey glasses that used to be my father's, and
right.
I originally had 6. I've only got 4 left because 2 of them broke. And when those 2 broke, like I almost lost it. Even though I had others, like just knowing that I had lost 2 of them, I almost lost it.
Oh yeah. Well, listen, I understand that too, because I've got the stuff, that belonged to my father that I have. You know what? I haven't even looked at it since, he passed away, but it doesn't matter. It's enough to know that I have them.
Right. Exactly. You want to hold on to that.
Yeah. And if something was to happen to them, yeah, I'd be, oh man, I don't know what I'd do, but.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I like this movie so much, just because like it really feels like a human movie.
It is. It takes place in outer space and there's aliens and speaking of aliens, the Sovereign cracks me up because apparently the Sovereign is keeping in tune with the overall feel of this movie. Apparently there are a bunch of 1970s kids who hang out at the mall playing video games.
I love how they worked in those sounds from like the old school video games.
Yeah. And when he gets blown up, the last guy knows that, oh man, you suck. And they turn away.
And the funny thing is they already died. So it's like they're
Yeah. And they don't really get in the ships that are, they're back at home in the arcade, practically. That's what it is. Yeah. And the ships they fly them and they fire them by remote control. And then, they all died. So now they're all huddled around the one guy that's still alive, trying to see if he's going to, I said, oh my goodness.
You also get the sense that all these centuries of, you know, the selective test tube breeding and all that has kind of fucked them up a little bit, because there's that scene when they go to the planet to meet with Yondu, and she makes them drag out the carpet for her, and it gets stuck.
Yeah, you get the feeling that despite their technological advances, that they're really not all that bright.
Yeah.
You know, maybe just the one, maybe just the woman that's at the top and her chief scientist and stuff like that.
Aisha, yeah. But Aisha's definitely probably the only one, because she's the one who's like always like, these fucking morons.
Yeah.
Which is why she has to create Adam at the end.
Yeah, but like the ones that do the grunt work, they're not, they're not that smart, because that's what they're created for, to do grunt work.
Right.
They have this impossibly long carpet that when she's on the planet and she's going to see Sylvester Stallone, and they have this impossibly long carpet that they're continually unrolling in front of her, and it gets stuck at one point. And she gives them this look like, like there's something that dropped out the south end of a northbound horse.
Right, yeah.
Oh, man. You know what? There's just so much goodness in this movie. I honestly don't see people. Okay, there's some movies that people tell me that they don't like, and I just say, okay, well, I need to leave this person alone. This is one of those movies. Yeah,
definitely. And of course, we got to talk about Yondu's funeral at the end. Like that is such a heartbreaking, especially when they connected back to the David Hasselhoff thing, and it's this kind of speech that if you read it on paper, it's ridiculous, but the way Chris Pratt delivers it, and in the context of everything in that movie, like it's so touching.
Yeah. He sells that scene, and I mean, like I said, when I saw it in the theater, and I was already in an emotional state anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and the funeral starts, and they play the Cat Stevens song, and then Sylvester Stallone and all the rest of the Ravagers, they come.
Right, and that ties back to earlier, because he said, he's like, you'll never be one of us. The colors of O'Gord will never flash over your grave.
Yeah. And Rocket said, yeah, well, I sent them a message. And I said, because of course Rocket sent them a message.
Yeah.
Because he had that connection with Yondu.
Right.
He made that connection with, of course he would tell them. And I, like I said, I realized that I had tears coming down my face, which I didn't even know was coming down my face. Yeah. And I was watching it today, and I got choked up.
Yeah, especially when Rocket, when Kraglin, Quill says it's a Ravager funeral, and then Kraglin, he's like breaking up and everything,
and he's crying.
Yeah, and that's when you realize how important that is to them.
Yeah. It's a sacred ritual.
I like that little, not really addressing the issue, but addressing the issue thing between Rocket and Quill at the end, when he says, it's like, they came, even though he was mean to them. And he says, well, yeah, he's like, even though he stole batteries he doesn't need. And Quill understands in that moment that that's Rocket's way of apologizing.
Yeah. He kind of looks at him, and he's saying, yeah, okay. He, and know what? To give him his credit, Peter doesn't push the issue. He says, okay, cool. Which shows right there that in the course of this adventure, the both of them have grown.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because before they felt the need to just go back at each other and try to top each other. This time he didn't feel it. No, he said, you know what? It's enough.
Well, it's just like what Nebula said when they crashed out. It's like, either one of you could have flown through that if you were using your head instead of what's between your legs.
Yeah, exactly. I like, I always like little more, because you know what? You don't have to beat me over the head to let me know that the characters have changed and grown. You can do little things like that, which, as you so accurately point out, resonate even more because you're not beating me over the head with it.
Well, also that scene, like you were talking about when the Cat Stevens started playing, and then Groot crawls up on his lap. and he's like asking for the earphones so he can listen to.
Yeah.
And then during the funeral, Groot's like reaching out for each of them, and you get the sense that it's not that, it's not just like Rocket is a father figure for Groot. It's like they all are. They're all a parental figure for him.
They all are, yeah, because he goes.
Because at first because he's being held by.
Goes to Gamora.
He goes to Gamora, and then he reaches over to Drax, and then he falls asleep on Drax's shoulder.
Oh, he yawns and he just like goes and and know what? That goes back to, again, like we said, they had that big fight with the intergalactic space monster at the beginning, and all of them are looking out for Groot.
Yeah.
They're taking time out of the fight to make sure he don't get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, oh God, I mean, I could probably talk about this movie all day, but we're already probably going on too much about it. But the only other thing I want to mention is I love that scene where we see Teen Groot in the mid-credit scene.
Oh yeah. When he's playing with the video game.
Yeah, and it's like Pete's like, he's like, I'm not boring, you're boring. He's like, I love that with the idea that now that's also such a human thing. We're like, now Quill understands what it's like to be a father, and now he's no longer the cool space pirate.
Right. Yeah, Groot is going to now he's got to be the authority figure. Clean up your room and clean up. You can't live like this. What's this mess? I am Groot. Hey, watch your mouth. Don't you talk to me like that.
And he's like, now I know how Yondu felt.
My spaceship, my rules. Yeah, I mean, you know what? As much as first of all, I love both of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, definitely.
The first Guardians of the Galaxy movie had me sold right from the opening credits.
Oh, ditto. Yeah. Same thing.
Okay, I don't care how the rest of this movie goes, they got me.
And I didn't even know anything about Chris Pratt before this. In fact, the only actors I knew going into this movie were really like Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel and Zoe Saldana. That was it.
I have been telling people for years, because I knew Chris Pratt and Aubrey Plaza. Mm-hmm. I knew them from Parks and Recreation. And I was telling people back when they were on, I said, watch those two actors. I said, they're going to be big.
Yeah.
After
I saw this movie, the first thing I did was I started watching Parks and Recreation on Netflix. And I just started rewatching it. And they are everyone on that show is amazing, but especially the two of them.
Yeah, a matter of fact, Barry Reese, he just discovered Parks and Recreation, and he was getting ready to quit watching it. And me and a bunch of other people.
Yeah, I was one of them.
I told him, I said, no. Yeah, okay. The first season is pretty much the Amy Poehler show. Mm-hmm. But then after that, once they figure out what type of show they're doing, it gets much better.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has got to do with it becomes more of an ensemble show. Mm-hmm. And they give Chris Pratt stuff to do. And Aubrey Plaza has got the best deadpan since Buster Keaton.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
She gets more of a laugh from me with just a look than she can with 3 or 4 pages of dialogue.
She was in the Child's Play remake, apparently. And so I picked that up, and I haven't watched it yet. But one of the reasons, there were 2 reasons I decided to pick that up was, one, she's in it. The other is Mark Hamill is doing the voice of Chucky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I picked it up just for that. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard it's actually pretty good. So I'm looking forward to eventually getting around to that.
But these movies, to me, like I said, I love space opera. And to me, these movies are like they are the essence of space opera.
Oh, and speaking of Aubrey Plaza, can we get her in a Marvel movie yet by now?
It's about time.
I mean,
I don't know why she is in one already.
Yeah, they got to give her something, because she's too good not to be in these movies.
She is too good. Yeah, she's too good not to be in anything. Like I said, she's a fantastic actress. I love her. And when I saw her, like I said, when I saw her and Chris Pratt, I said back then, I said, watch, these 2 people, they're going to become stars.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Chris Pratt, you know what? I keep getting shit all the time. I don't care. It's time for Chris Pratt to be Indiana Jones. Yeah,
I can see that. Especially after the Jurassic World movies, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, especially when I saw that, I said, okay, it's time for him to be Indiana Jones.
Yeah. All right, so anything else to say about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
Only that if you haven't seen it already, if you have Disney Plus, it's available. It's on Disney Plus along with all the other Marvel movies. So, matter of fact, sometime this summer, I'm planning on having a massive rewatch of all the Marvel movies. I've got most of them on Blu-ray, but hey, it's on Disney Plus. I'm paying for it anyway. Why not?
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen already, the good thing about the Guardians of the Galaxy movies is that you really don't need to know a lot about the other Marvel movies in order to see it.
No, in fact, little story about this is when my girlfriend and I started dating, she told me that she didn't like superhero movies. So one night I suggested we watch Guardians of the Galaxy. We watched it, she loved it. And then she said she wanted to see the second one. So we watched the second one, she loved that. And then, we went back and we started at the beginning. And that's how I converted her.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, this movie is, okay, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies are like they are updated versions of those hokey 1950s, 60s science fiction movies, I mean, this is Flash Gordon, this is Buck Rogers, this is this is Message from Space, this is, Battle Beyond the Star, any cheesy B science fiction movie that you can think of from the 70s and 80s, Guardians of the Galaxy is that cranked up to 11.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's the perfect note to end it on. So next week is your pick. So what are we going to be watching next?
Okay, hold on. Let me bring up my list here because I do have a list. I'm doing it the right way this time. I have a whole list written out, and I'm just gonna wait for it to come up. And wait a minute, I don't have to look at the list because I remember what we said. Remember, I had said when we did the last episode that we were gonna do Dr. Mordred.
Oh, right, yeah.
For my next pick, that is the pseudo Doctor Strange project that started out as Doctor Strange, and then the producers or whatever, they lost the rights to Doctor Strange. So they said, well, the hell with it. Since they had started already, they just continued on doing it as a Doctor Strange knockoff.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And that's actually on Tubi TV, which I just found out I got on Apple TV. It's free, so I was able to. And I saw on there too, they got another movie we talked about before, which was A-Bars on there as well.
Oh, okay. It's on Tubi TV, right?
Yeah. So if you haven't seen A-Bar or Dr. Mordred, which we're going to talk about next week, then just check out Tubi TV. It's completely free. So
I downloaded it a couple of weeks ago because I know people kept telling me about Tubi, and I've heard about it for like a long time. So I said, well, you know what? Let me download it and just take a look at it because I'm always looking for a resource to find movies, If there's a movie we talk about, that's what I do. I go on, and see if I can find it for free. And then it was on there and I said, oh, okay, cool. Well, this is good. So you said Dr. Mordred is on there too?
Yeah. I saw it on there the other day.
Okay, cool. So so that's what we're going to do next time, folks.
Okay. Thanks so much for listening. We're glad we were able to get the show back up. Sorry if it was any inconvenience for those of you who missed the regular listening day. But everything's running along now. We're going to see if we can avoid those problems in the future. And otherwise, head on over to Superhero Cinephiles, join the group on Facebook, start joining the conversation. You can give us some kickbacks on Patreon or go to the website, superherocinephiles.com. Any of the movies we talk about, if you rent them through our Amazon link or you buy or rent anything through our Amazon links, we get a little bit of a kickback. So that always helps us out. All right, that does it for this week. Thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time when we talk about Dr. Mordred.
Good night. God bless. Remember, there's still a pandemic on, so please, be safe out there. Wash your hands. Use your hand sanitizer. Don't be fooled into thinking that everything is everything, because it's not. Okay?
Okay. And that does it for us. We'll talk to you next time.
Good night. God bless.
Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. If you have any questions or comments about this or any other episode, or if you have a superhero movie or TV show you'd like us to cover in a future episode, you can email us at superherocinephiles@gmail.com
or you can also visit us on the web at superherocinefiles.com. If you like what you hear, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Each review helps us reach more potential listeners. You can also support the show by renting or purchasing the movies discussed, or by picking up our books, all of which can be accessed through the website, as well as find links to our social media presences. The theme music for this show is a shortened version of Superhero Showdown, a royalty-free piece of music courtesy of BesleonStudios.com.